I put out a tweet right when he was killed that political violence is wrong and that we should work everything within our power to end gun violence in this country. None of us were interested in litigating his life until his supporters and our House Republican colleagues decided to say he was akin to Martin Luther King, who this man loathed. So you invited us into that debate that you wanted to have, that you said Charlie was always interested in. And so you cannot get upset, you can't be mad if people then hold that mirror and say, but here's really who he was. And we cannot forget. It's one thing to ask us to condemn the violence, but it's another for you to ask us to pretend Charlie wasn't who Charlie was.
I'm not sure anyone's asking that. I mean, maybe some people are.
That is what people are asking.
I'm certainly not asking that, but
that is what people are asking. People are asking and are getting fired for sharing Charlie's words.
Well, and some people were celebrating it. That was part of it. But
I haven't seen that. I've just seen people sharing his words.
There was a town hall that you had 6 days ago. You called Kirk a quote, hateful man, and you had reposted a video that I'm sure you've seen, you've taken criticism for. It's a video that called him a reprehensible human being and said, Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein and his monster shot him through the neck. Why repost that video?
Because there were a lot of things in the video that I did agree with. Obviously, we share videos. We don't have to agree with every single word. But I do believe he was a reprehensible, hateful man. Like, that is my view.
All right. So it's difficult dealing with people like this because I don't understand why they elect individuals like this or keep electing them. She's from Somalia, and she migrated over to America, but I'm not sure how they get into powerful seats like this and become public officials. And basically, in her case, migrate to, I think she's a representative over there in, where's Ilhan Omar representing? She represents Minnesota as a House representative. I don't understand how you migrate over here and then you basically take over the city and then get in these seats. I don't know how they get into these powerful seats as public officials, but it blows my mind because you can't have a real conversation with an individual like this. You already have their mind made up, because people were literally absolutely celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. It was all over social media and all over the algorithm, and I'm pretty sure Ilhan Omar is aware of it, and she's acting like no one was doing that, but she's saying that she's seen rhetoric from Charlie Kirk, but she's not mentioning that people were celebrating his death and basically inciting violence, which in this case, I don't think no job or company would condone in that or support that or back an employee behind that. So her saying that they're just randomly getting fired, like she just don't know why, and just out of thin blue air they got fired for posting Charlie Kirk remarks, is deeper than that, because they were celebrating his death, let alone inciting violence by justifying his death when this was a human life. And I'm always put the humanity part in it because I can care less about a Democrat or Republican side. This is not politics for me. This is about a human life being taken away, who was a father, who was a husband, and a family member. And however, celebrating that, no matter how you disagree or don't like the person as much, we all at least came to the understanding that a human life not dying naturally, but being taken away, in regards of them not putting themselves in any type of violent situation by just saying their strong beliefs, having a conversation, you being able to debate him, turns into him being assassinated in cold blood in front of young adults that are at a university, and he's at a university just having critical thinking, thought-provoking conversations where anyone can chime in and give their thoughts and respectfully agree to disagree, or agreeably disagree. So it's complete nonsense. What she's spewing is dishonest, and you can see Caitlin Collins is pushing back on Ilhan Omar a little bit, which tells a lot. But I'm not really sure Ilhan really knows what Charlie Kirk stood for. I think she's just using talking points on the rhetoric she's seen, but not really getting the full context. And maybe she doesn't care because how combative she is on pushing back on Caitlin Collins, basically saying, I don't think that's what people were saying. And she's saying basically that's exactly what they were saying. So what I do know what right now, what she is saying is wild, and she's trying to rewrite who Charlie was, let alone she doesn't even know Charlie Kirk personally, and acting like he was some hateful monster. And the reason she voted down a resolution to honor his legacy isn't because of any hateful rhetoric, is because she don't like him, right? She doesn't like conservatives. That's the truth. It seems to be. She sat there and said, "Oh, ever since the Republican parties or whatever have, you know, took more action in regards of using their rightful, lawful opportunities that they took along." She's trying to make this a political thing, saying that this is the right. And they ever since they supported Charlie Kirk and done the things they done in regards of, playing a blame game, basically. And she's basically defending her Democratic Party, her party, by saying it's the Republicans' fault and it's the Republicans' reason why they backed Charlie Kirk, who spread this hateful rhetoric in her eyes, and it's the reason why this happened to be what it is. And people need to stop letting politicians gaslight them, right? Because Trump talked about Ilhan Omar during an interview on Air Force One. He basically said what a lot of people are thinking. She came to this country, she got rich, and now she holds public office, migrating over to America, and she's in Minneapolis. And she mentioned that, it came out, and she's trying to basically defend herself that she didn't make or didn't curate all these riches and get wealthy in America, saying that she is broke and it's her husband money and the things that he done by managing her marriage monies is from his successes that they became wealthy. She is actually broke, and trying to leave out the clue and the highlights and the real details of it, of how she really did get wealthy, and and when it comes to her net worth and stuff, but trying to play that. But the facts are what they are, and she represents a population in Minnesota that's basically, um, you know, taking over Twin Cities through migration, and now she sits in Congress acting like she's better than people who disagree with her. Meanwhile, um, Charlie Kirk embodied conservative American values. He didn't promote hate. He didn't do any acts of violence. He held people accountable. If you didn't like what he had to say, you had a chance to have a conversation, debate him, tell your stance, let alone tell his stance, and y'all talk about it. Gave people a platform, even if they disagree with him. I don't know how all of this thing of her painting him as a monster came about, but it's totally wrong. It's totally disingenuous. And Van Jones, I just did a video on it. Go check it out recently, of him saying how Charlie Kirk reached out to him and saying, look, we can agreeably disagree. And they totally didn't disagree. They totally didn't agree with each other, and they had back and forth rhetoric. But the whole thing of Charlie Kirk was, let's have a critical thinking, thought provoking conversation. We can agree to disagree, but we can sit down as mature adults and mature individuals and have productive dialogue, which push the envelope to do better, to be better, to see the mistakes, to see the kinks, twist, and the things that we need to work on, because no country is perfect. But no, she rather sit on CNN, Omar, and twist the narrative and make it about mental health or identity politics, because she start going down this rabbit hole of talking about Dr. Martin Luther King and all this other stuff, and it's wild. But let's continue.
Of the words that he has said about every single identity that I belong to. He didn't believe that we should have equal access to anything. He also just didn't even believe I could be smart enough. I could have thoughts that could be equal to a white man. Where are we missing this conversation about who this man was and the things that he said? How do you not find that reprehensible, Caitlin?
Well, of course I don't.
Do you think
I don't
have
subscribe to that? But
do
I
you
think
think I don't have the brain processing power like you or a white man?
Well, of course not. And I know, think it's very clear here that I'm not sharing his views, and I don't justify them. But if somebody said that, that would be reprehensible views? I think the argument that was being made.
No, but I'm asking
what
you.
we have heard.
What I'm asking you is, would you say that?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking me.
But you're asking me, how could I find him reprehensible? Like, that
No, I'm
is
not.
reprehensible. You said it is reprehensible yourself. That is vile, it's reprehensible, and it is hateful.
No, I'm not asking why you think he's reprehensible. I think you're obviously allowed to have your own views. That's why we have you on here so often, because we like to hear your views and what you think on something. I just think it was the video where it called him Dr. Frankenstein and said his monster shot him through the neck. I mean, obviously this is a person, and looking at this is someone who was a husband and a father, and in the days after his shocking death, that happened as a result of his views, or it happened as a result as he was sharing his views publicly with people, that people found it jarring to hear such criticism of that in the immediate aftermath of
What
someone's death.
I find jarring is that there's so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
All right, family. So I'm gonna leave it there. It's mind blowing to me how she's basically trying to, revamp and recreate Charlie Kirk's word by saying that he doesn't accept people like her and all these divisive rhetoric once again. And I just don't understand how a public servant, not even having the decency to appreciate humanity and just human life, and for it to be taken like that in cold blood. But this is what happened when greed, narrative, and power takes over just the simple fact, the sentiment of a human life, and understanding that just for the sake of humanity, that this person, in this case Charlie Kirk, didn't have to die the way he did in his life. He didn't have to go out the way he did just because of conversation. So as a public official who's getting paid with tax dollars, sitting here basically not even having the decency or some type of moral ground and say, you know what, I may have not liked what he said, but he didn't have to go out for his beliefs, but then sit there and say, oh, I'm gonna paint him as a monster because this is truly who he was. It's very hypocritical, because you sit here and say he's highly remembered, and so many people are touched by his impact, but then you try to erase his impact by by revamping and being a revisionist, by remixing and re-saying, or I should say not remixing but recreating what he was and what he stood for, when it's plain as day you just don't like him. So now you look at it like, I'm not about to sit here and have the decency to take your personal feelings out of it and remove it as a public servant who served people of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So how can you serve people if you can't even have the decency to respect human life? But let me know what you guys think. I don't know how these individuals keep getting elected in office. That's just my opinion. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think. Peace.